Yes. Well, we just wrapped up with the GT More project, and we are looking forward to the next one. And we've hinted at what that's going to be. You know, it's probably going to be a G chassis car. And guess what? It's not this one. This is a customer's M2 that they just dropped off, and he's had it for a couple of weeks and already had it at the track a couple of times. And well, he wanted to get a few upgrades done to it after having it at the track. We are already doing some wheel test fitment, figuring out what we can squeeze under this thing, how we can maximize it. And one of his complaints about the car was it's a little wallowy. Honestly, the car performed pretty well, but he wanted some better suspension and performance on it, and what better way to do that than throw the MCS and SPL treatment at it. We're doing MCS two-way remotes on this thing, full SPL line going on the underside of this, as well as a few more new parts that we're working on that looking forward to tell you more about that as we dive in on this thing, get under it, and get this installed. All right, so getting cracking on this thing, and one of the gotchas that is a bit of an additional amount of work to do that BMW could have possibly made easier to install would be getting to this front tension rod, tension strut, control arm, lower control arm, whatever you want to call it, bolt. You have to take apart a bunch of stuff in the front end to get to this thing. They have like this frame rail, part of the frame rail, so to speak, that blocks it, and to get to that off, you got to get the bumper off. So we've got to dig in, get this thing off. A bit of a bummer because actually this piece is super critical to braking performance. We've had our precision front control arm bearing for a lot of years in a lot of different chassis, E8X, E9X, F8X.
Oh wow, yeah, that's really way up in there, huh? Yeah,
pretty far up in there. You've got to get this off, which means you got to get some stuff up here off, which means you got to get the bumper off. Kind of a snowball chain reaction effect, but like I said, this piece is super critical to the braking performance and helps reduce the ABS interaction and whatnot as these cars see a lot of braking load. And yeah, we'll get at it. All right, the bumper's off. We got access to everything for this front control arm bearing. Came off pretty quickly. I could say easy. Dave would probably tell me I'm full of it and it was actually a pain, but whatever. He got it knocked out, as he does with a lot of things. But we have another gotcha. So back here, we're working on getting some of the arms in the rear, and there's this one bolt on the F chassis that is always terrible to get out because you back it out and it bangs right into the sway bar. Well, not the case on this one. Actually have enough room. Hey, BMW learned something maybe and was able to make that easier to get out. However, a different bolt, this one up here, they could have put the bolt in coming from the backside going in, but instead they put it from the front of the car going back, and we can't get it out because it runs into the body. So we're gonna have to probably lower the subframe a little bit to get that bolt out, but this is what we're doing, figuring this out. On the GT4s, actually, they do it from the backside going in, so they knew what they were doing for that one. But on the road cars, I guess, you know, everything gets put together from the bottom and then put up, so they didn't run into this issue from the factory. We're gonna take care of it now, though. Shop's been making some pretty good progress on this M2. All the SPL stuff is on, the MCS is on, still gotta go through all the setup things, torque everything down. I was going to go through why we chose MCS on this project and why we do it on a lot of builds like this. James insisted that he be a part of something with this. Maybe he felt a little left out, I don't know. I'm gonna try to keep him from going on a rambly tangent, but James, why do we choose MCS?
Well, I wanted to be involved because I love MCS and got started with them 10 plus years ago. We've used shocks of their type and their predecessor, which was Moton, for 20 plus years. So I got a little experience that I wanted to share. But I love MCS because they are wet struts, which is important. You've got a big shaft. It supports the side load of a McPherson strut car. That's super important for anybody with a BMW. They have a solid range of adjustment, so anything you need is in these dampers. And in the dampers, without like special builds, it doesn't need a special coating, a special shaft, a special piston for your application. It's in there, and it's in there for the highest levels of pro use, because back in the day when we were running Grand Am or IMSA, when we had freedom to run any damper we wanted to before homologated cars, we and like 80% of the field were on MCS because the stuff works and it's awesome. So, you know, right out of the box, top performer. That's why I love it, and that's what gets the results for us on any high-level project car. They just kill it.
Good work on not going rambly. That was pretty quick and good. Lots of good info there. Follow-up question, even though I didn't want you to go too rambly, but here I go, asking another question. We chose remotes on this car. We have remotes, non-remotes. Why would you choose remotes here?
Well, first of all, Phil, thank you, and I do appreciate that you want more. So, everything has a benefit slash, you know, features, benefits, drawbacks, you know, maybe. Either way, with these MCS dampers, you're going to get an awesome product, but which one is right for you? Non-remotes, easy packaging. You don't have to run that remote canister. Your adjustments are at the top, so you have your rebound adjustment on a two-way non-remote. You also have a compression adjustment at the top, so you don't have to get into the car. That's super nice. When we go with a remote reservoir with the canisters, you also retain that adjustment right here on the canister. So not right on the top, but easily accessible. But the big reason for the remotes, if you're willing to run those lines, if you're willing to spend a little more money, the remotes give you capacity. It takes the gas and oil that's in a non-remote is all in the damper body and adds a line and puts that up here. So the damper is the oil, and there is some oil through the line and in the remote canister, but there's more of it. And then there's also more nitrogen gas volume. So basically you're just adding compliance. So while those non-remotes really, really function well, even at, you know, high levels of club racing with some impressive results, the remote reservoir gives you additional capacity, gives you additional compliance, just because you have more volume. It's kind of like trying to make 400 horsepower out of a V8 or out of a 4-cylinder. It just works better when you do it in an unstressed V8. The larger the volume, it just works better. It's more compliant.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, now that James is out of the way, we're gonna go over some of the MCS install stuff we did. One of the tricks of remote reservoirs is always figuring out where to mount the canisters. Fortunately, on this chassis, we did some checking, and between the strut brace and the hood, there's tons of clearance. So it kind of gives us a super awesome, easy spot to put the canisters. You know, sometimes I've seen people mount them behind fender liners, tucked away places, but you want to be able to get to these, make adjustments quickly when possible. You know, some other stuff that's kind of nice that we do on some of these cars, add a little rubber isolation whenever you are routing the line and securing the line somewhere, because you don't want that to be rubbing against anything, chafing anything. Let's go to the back, see where we mounted the rear canisters. Back here, we did quick disconnect for the canisters as an add-on, because we know that it makes it easier for the installation process. There's a couple of little holes here that we cut out, drilled out the hole, and punched the quick disconnect through. These just come apart easily. I don't know if the shop has these discharged right now, so I'm not going to disconnect them, because if you disconnect those while they're still charged with the 150, 175, 200 PSI pressure, you're gonna struggle to get them back together. So make sure before you disconnect the QDs, you discharge the system. But anyways, another clean install back here, easy to access. Once this all gets finalized, we'll clean all this up, get these secured, and now let's go to the underside and check out some of the SPL arm install. All right, we'll start at the back. This thing has all kinds of arms back here, multi-link suspension. You know, we're familiar with these things for a lot of years. I mean, we've raced kind of the same similar design since the E90 days. So we've got a lot of experience. There's been some changes and adaptations, different arm lengths, a few different other pieces, but really what you're doing here is trying to get rid of a lot of that bushing deflection and also add a lot of adjustment that sometimes some people don't totally know what to do with all these adjustments. But fortunately, we've had our hands on this type of suspension for a lot of years and know which tweaks, what baseline arm lengths to set, how to set bump steer in these things, which is something we're going to do on this in a little bit once everything gets finalized and we're in the setup process of this. You know, something else we just added on, new product, just test fit on this thing, is our offset rear camber arm bearing. You know, this is a roll center correcting joint. There's some other joints that do it from the outside, but that's already a ball joint out here, and because this joint is larger, we can actually get more offset from this inside joint, which allows us to correct the roll center geometry of this arm, which really the benefit of that is, restoring geometry as you're lowering the car, but then you're going to be able to have increased camber gain through the range of motion of the suspension, which is going to help increase your contact patch of the tire when you're in a corner, which means better grip, faster lap times. That's the hope, at least. Up front, got all the SPL treatment as well. Once again, we have messed with these kind of cars for a lot of years, and all these adjustments can get a little bit confusing on what to do, how to adjust them. We're here to help get you a baseline setup of where we spec these things to start with. There are different spacers here on all of these arms to kind of set the roll center correction, bump steer correction, which it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. These really do require a setup process which depend on the ride height. What are you doing with the car? Are you street driving the car? Are you track driving the car? Full race only? That may mean a different ride height, which may mean a different sequence of spacers for what you're going for. We also know that the strut tower design in these cars kind of limits how the camber plate can be designed, which means that it may limit how much negative camber you can crank into these things just from the plate. So with this arm, not only is it roll center help, it also can be extended out, which kicks the bottom of the wheel out, which is going to increase the negative camber, which we know these cars can definitely benefit from a good bit of that. Ultimately, you're kind of looking for approximately parallel to the ground with these arms. When you lower the car, a lot of times that stock arm starts to go up like this, and you're just jacking up the roll center geometry. So aside from the deflection point of getting rid of some of these factory location bushings, we are also improving the geometry and looking forward to getting this thing set up on the ground and take the next steps with it. Well, as we were looking at the SPL arms under here, I thought, well, that looks like our F8X brake cooling deflectors should work, and just got someone to pull me a set, and let's see if these things are going to work on here. Would be pretty awesome, as these are pretty simple, inexpensive upgrade to improve the front end brake cooling on this car. That's the right side. All right. Real simple, just hose clamps with some rubber that we include in it to the SPL arm or the stock arm on the F8X at least. Yeah, that's pretty awesome and pretty directly straight into the center vanes of the rotor, which another convenient thing is on this G87, it looks like they've left the center open from the factory, which means that this thing's gonna be able to feed air straight into it. Oh, also, we've got this opening here, which, yeah, that goes straight through, which is gonna just, feed air into this, which, man, this thing's gonna be pretty sweet. So that's, these are definitely going on this car to help improve the front brake cooling. So these cars are pretty heavy, pretty fast, means you're really loading up those front brakes, so this will help brake life and consistency. And let's see, do we have a stock arm? This is the right side, yes. Trying to see if this thing will work as is. I think we're gonna need to tweak on the hose clamp locations on this, but we should be able to modify this deflector moving forward and make a running change so that these things will also work on the stock arms as a super simple, effective upgrade to brake cooling on these bad boys. Awesome. Continuing around to the front of the car, we got this thing and immediately, this thing has 1,700 miles on it and already has damage around these fins on the cooler. Our typical move is we'll put some like chicken wire mesh behind these things, but our friends at Zunsport actually just released the G87 M2 grills, so we're working on getting the full grill treatment to help protect these coolers because nobody wants a damaged cooler from a rock or something that someone threw up on track. Also, this lower cooler, they have a grill for that too, for this oil cooler, just to help protect all these things because they're pretty exposed. So looking forward to getting those on the car as well. One thing I forgot to mention is when we were messing with this thing before, I pointed out this bolt up here, we can't get it out because it runs into the body. So we're gonna have to probably lower the subframe a little bit to get that bolt out. I thought maybe we're gonna have to lower the rear subframe, but fortunately, you can back the bolt out just enough, and then we got a Sawzall in there, cut the head of the bolt off, and then replace it with a new bolt going the other direction, like on the GT4s where it's smart, so we can change these things quicker and not have to run into that same problem again in the future. Interestingly enough, we have a G82 now on the lift getting some MCS on, and that bolt that we said was a problem on that G87, apparently on this car, they installed it the other way. I'm not sure if all G87s are installed with that bolt going front to back, or maybe just that one that we were working on, but anyways, seems like it may be hit or miss, and who knows what you have. Right now, Rich is working on the bump steer on the rear of this car, which to even get to this point requires full setup of camber, toe, ride heights, all the things, which in the front, camber's a little bit limited, and we knew that because of the strut tower design, but with those SPL arms up front, we're able to kick the bottom out and get the camber in the range that we wanted to. And in the back, now that we've gone through that full first phase of setup, getting this bump steer set also using those SPL arms, because these are a multi-link suspension in the rear with a bunch of different arms, and the stock arms are fixed, and these SPL arms allow us the adjustability to get the bump steer dialed in. All right, why is bump steer important? Well, as you compress the suspension or go into droop, you are gonna dynamically change how the rear wheels are positioned in a tow range. So dynamically, you could have a ton of toe out or a ton of toe in, depending on what the situation is for the rear of the car. And that can affect how the car behaves, oversteery, understeery, how it affects power down, things like that. So super important to get this dialed in just how we want it from, like I said, the experience with the GT4, GT More program, all that stuff. And then, because once you mess with one arm, you mess with everything and affect all the suspension setup things, we've got to go back through and do the suspension setup again. So a little bit of a lengthy and involved process, but important to the performance and handling characteristics of this thing. Another important part of this process is including these KW EDC cancellation kit, which one on each corner of the car to cancel out the electronic damping control. When you undo the stock dampers, when you remove the stock dampers, you get alarms on the dash that are annoying, pesky, and these are a simple and effective way to remove those things. Actually, we normally code them out, but currently the cluster is still locked out on these to do the coding for that, so we'll go with these. Other quick note in the rear is that on the rear shock, there is an acceleration sensor mounted to the rear shock from the factory, and don't have provisions for that on the rear shock when we're moving to a different suspension setup, but we do have these little brackets here that allow it to mount to the chassis, and just real simple right angle brackets that give us a fixed mounting solution, because they do need to be fixed mounted so we don't get any chassis faults. All right, wrapping this thing up. Customer is on his way here, gonna pick it up here in just a few minutes actually, and putting the last few finishing touches on it, including these number boards, some decals, gotta represent. I guess they trusted me to do this, but didn't trust me to do some of the other stuff, whatever. Really looking forward to getting this in the customer's hands. I think he had an event at Road Atlanta this weekend, but it's gonna be cold and rainy, so I think switching that up to a different event. Really excited with how this thing came out. It looks awesome. A lot lower. This thing was like a 4x4 when it came in, but pretty excited to get him in here, get him in the car, go for a test drive, get his impressions, and then really get his impressions on track in a couple weeks when he gets this thing out there. We've been through all this stuff. I don't need to go through all the list of things that we did on this thing, but at the core, MCS dampers, SPL arms, full BimmerWorld treatment on the setup, and looking forward to getting him in this thing. All right, so we've been working on this thing. We got Luie here to pick up his ride. He's excited. I'm excited for him to get on track and check this thing out. We're gonna dive in and go over some of the stuff that we did, review it with him, and take a little test drive. All right, we'll go out, take a right, and then take another right and take a couple roads. Have you done much track stuff before, like in a car before?
Nah, it's all motorcycle stuff.
How long you did motorcycle stuff?
15 years.
Okay.
I got 12 championships, regional stuff and stuff like that. And then the last few years I did like the pro Moto America stuff.
That's awesome.
Said right?
Yep.
Yeah, this feels 100% different.
Yeah, I mean, the stock cars are just so floaty, and that weight transfer, you always gotta be so patient and wait for it to take a set. And now you can, I mean, you should be able to attack the S's like crazy now.
I had some Olins on the 911, and this feels just so much better.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. The spring rate, even though it's got a pretty high spring rate on it, it still doesn't feel.
No, it's not jarring.
Yeah. You know, some cars just get stiff to be stiff because the damper can't control it, but these dampers just control it so well. It's still not a bad street ride even with this much rate.
No, it's not. Is that 7 in the rear, 8 in the front?
Yep. A little more confidence inspiring, huh?
Yeah, it just feels just more stable. Like when I hit the brakes right there, like the back end didn't want to swim around.
Because it just, on the stock, it just nosedives, and that rear just is so loose and light.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna it up with now. Like, yes.
Yeah, this is going to be a different animal.
I'm not even pushing it, and it's just like laughing at me.
It's going to be a different animal. I'm pumped for you to get this thing to the track.
How does it feel over there? Like
It feels awesome.
Okay.
Like feels super stable, and you know, even
Yep.
when you were hitting the brakes, obviously you're not like loading it, but you had it with some lateral load, and it didn't feel like it wanted to come around. It was just planted and good.
You want to drive it?
Oh, I drove it last night.
Okay.
Yeah, I came back in with a smile on my face and went to James's office and was like, "Yeah, that thing. I think he's gonna be happy with it. I think it feels pretty awesome."
It's so like it feel like it needs more power now because it just holds it. It holds it. You know?
I bet you go to the track and you're like, "Huh? Can I turn this thing up now?"
I didn't think this platform would be this good, honestly.
It's impressive.
And like,
So you wanted to hide the weight? How do you know? Obviously,
it's gone. Like what weight?
Yeah.
You know, like the 911 just feels more. It needs a lot more bar. So like in the corners, like it just feels like you're just waiting and waiting for it to rotate because it just feels like a couch. You know?
Yep.
Oh yeah, dude, good job, guys.
Yeah, man.
Super pumped.
I'm super pumped for you to. Thanks for letting us. Do the work on it, and I think you'll be happy with the setup. It's a lot of layers to it, right? It's not just throwing suspension on it. You got to get it in the window to make it operate properly.
Right. And you got people that just want to participate, and then you got people that actually want to compete or go after their personal best. And to do that on a platform that a person's not familiar with, it helps if you go pay the money and talk to the people that have done it and have the experience and have done the R&D, because it takes away a lot of the guesswork out. You know what I mean? You go from, is it cheap? No, it's not cheap. It's expensive, but this sport is expensive.
Right.
You know? But at the same time, you pick up your car and you're in the ballpark. That's it. That's all I want to be, is in the ballpark. Because once you're in the ballpark, you're just doing clickers here and there for the track. You're not going, well, man, the spring rate doesn't work, and you don't have support at the track. Like on a motorcycle, just go to a suspension guy and go, hey, this is what my data is saying, or it's pumping too much, or on the brakes it's not holding me up, I'm at the bottom of the stroke. And you change that spring rate, super easy. But in a car, you got to have the staff, you got to have the support to be able to do that, and to go to a shop, get that done, and get it in the ballpark where you can work with it for the whole weekend, and then grow into it. Like you said, we put aero on, maybe we have to change spring rate, and then we address it at that time. But this is all in the ballpark. This is what I like. You know what I mean? It's like I can go put this on the track now and just have a good time and not worry about like ninja starring it up in the S's at VIR. Phil, I love it, man. Thank you guys so much, man.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited.
Happy you're thrilled.
Yeah, this, like I said before 100 times, I knew it was going to be better, but I didn't think it was going to be this good. And it's comfortable too.
It's pretty wild. The dampers are nuts, man. It always impresses me how much they can hide. I mean, we had 1100 rates on the GT More at one point, and I drove it on the street, and I was like, even this feels not absurd.
Freaking nuts, bro. I love it.
Ready to go? Should be an awesome race weekend.
We are ready to kill it this year.
It's good.
It's going to be a wild ride.